The dialogue.
Also, Nirupama, you've been hearing that at the e-commerce level, that at the manufacturing plants, there are a lot of disruptions happening, that they're not able to produce as many essential goods as they could have due to certain issues with the local authorities. So again, the issue is not just from the supply side. I think in terms of the delivery side, there are issues in terms of right from the beginning of manufacturing to then collecting and then warehousing, wholesale, and then actually sort of the
The
last mile
delivery.
delivery.
Sure.
So, do you think there could be a special task force which could be developed state-wise, which ensures that essential items are delivered to people's houses? Because we are also discussing and talking to a lot of volunteer groups across Delhi and Gurgaon, and there are a lot of households and people who are coming out with anecdotal evidence to suggest, okay, we don't have access to this, the shop is closed, the delivery house is not working in our town, this person doesn't come in our area. I mean, there are such small, minute problems, and India is like it's a world of its own. Let's put it that way. It's bigger than Europe. It's bigger than the US in terms of
Correct.
population size, and a much more people, many more people than those countries have. So, how do we really sort of boil down or pinpoint to all these areas, make sure that every aspect is covered, or is it just humanly impossible?
I don't think it's humanly impossible. I don't think you'll have an absolute 100% foolproof method of doing it. But I think we can actually figure out ways to do this. And I think one of the ways is first to acknowledge that manufacturing units also have the right to decide as to their employees at this time whether they do want to work or they don't. And I think that option must be given to each of them. And based on that, the owner must take a call. It cannot be enforced because they are manufacturing essentials. But let's not forget that the choice has to be given to those of them who are working or who are expected to work. I think it's wrong for us to sit here and expect them to kind of put their lives at risks, or or the risk of actually being infected just so that you and I can get to eat our essentials. Fair enough. I mean, there is certain importance, but I think that bit has to first be stated.
Correct.
After that, I think once the choice is made and the manufacturer does make sure that that these are the people who are okay to keep it open and come to work, etc., then the harassment, or then the police at that level and the urban local body must not actually disrupt the production process. Because I think as of now they're literally going, I believe it's being done with the intention of saying everybody stays safe. I mean, I get that, but I don't think it's being done properly. So, which again comes back to a fundamental point of saying that last mile percolation of directives has to go. And that has to be on at the onus of every single person below that, above that individual who's there. Unless that last mile percolation uh, doesn't, unless and until the last mile percolation works, you're going to continue facing disruptions across board. So the concentration today has to be on making sure that the message that you want reaches that last person, that constable on the road there, and that traffic policeman on the road there, and they know whom they should stop and whom they shouldn't. That percolation is what I think the government needs to pay a lot more attention to. And by government, I mean both center and the state governments, all of them.
Yeah. So, Nirupama, what I've also been, thinking about is there a possibility of a feedback loop between the citizens and the government? That the government is pushing out certain operations, and the citizens are the ones who are receiving those operations, and a lot of them might feel, okay, it's not working out. So, how do you think we can have a feedback loop between the government and the people to make sure that the gaps are actually closed? Because great idea, awareness is important, but I don't think that will end up as a foolproof mechanism, because tomorrow and day after tomorrow we'll still see certain loopholes. They should work out, and how do you think we can develop that?
See, I think there are two things here. A feedback mechanism to the government per se may not help, because at the end of the day, the issues that we're facing are local. For example, what we're talking about is within our own community, certain
So it
households
could
or
be the
certain
state government. So
any,
I
but
think,
even
I mean,
but
it could be, let's say, I live in, right. Yeah,
the
go
point
ahead.
the point I'm trying to make is you need the feedback mechanism is important, but it has to be in a very localized manner. for the most effective and timely resolution. So if you would have one police station which is in charge of one area, so if that police, the head there can work with either one person in that area to
Right.
kind of coordinate, it works very well. So wherever there is a
Mhm.
problem, then the police can also facilitate, either delivery of goods, or they can ensure that there's some way in which it can happen, or they can help certain people move. My concern, for example, and largely, and I know where households are largely of older people, and you don't want them to get out. The drivers aren't coming, domestic help is not coming. So in which case, these households which need services delivered to them, and if they don't have the vehicle for them to go out, and it's not safe for them to go out, how do you ensure that services are available to them? So if the police can at least coordinate with people like this and go maybe once in a while do a round, they are doing rounds, so maybe a household call may not
Mhm.
be a bad idea. So to just
Mhm.
cover and make sure that over the next 21 days, every 3, 4 days, if they can go to each house, or every week even, it's about
The
what,
local
another two
police, you
weeks.
mean?
The local
The local.
police, the
Okay.
absolutely local police who would have around, let's say in that area with whatever constables, you would have about maybe, I don't know, they'll have a handful of policemen and they'll have maybe around 300 households, 400 households. But between
At least
10,
once,
15,
at least once they should visit during lockdown. I think that makes perfect sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
just at least once or twice in this period, just to find out. Not every house is going to tell you, I need something done, I need something done.
Right. Right.
Like, and I think that's where citizenry responsibility comes, where you don't use this opportunity to kind of also, burden them with unnecessary requests, and be realistic in what it is that you
Right.
want. If you're not running out of things and you just want to stock up because you want to be safe and sound, that's not what you need to do. Unless you're desperately in need of something, don't abuse the service that could be possibly offered, because then everyone suffers.
And that takes me to my next question, which is within the essential items, there are some items which are more essential. For infants, food for infants, or certain medicines, or sanitary pads, or stuff like that. How do we prioritize these products over others? I mean, obviously, you have to prioritize essential over non-essential, but even within essential, how do we ensure that we have the supply of these products and goods regularly, and we are meeting the demand? Because have we done any demand mapping yet? Have we been able to sort of map at a very local level? Okay, this sector requires X amount of food items or sanitary pads or whatever, and that locality requires less. So let's focus here first, and then let's go there. I mean, do you think the government and the e-commerce companies have to come much more together and collaboratively to sort of understand and brainstorm and map out these products? Because it's not just enough to sit back and issue directives and then tell the guys to, okay, now you go and run with it.
So I'm going to break your question into two and answer them separately. The first question that you asked is, can you prioritize within the essentials some which are more essential than the other? I think my answer is going to be no, because I think each household has its priorities in terms of what is required or not. For example, my own household, my priority is actually food for my animals over food for me, and that's what I would want available, and that for me is more essential. That may not be the case for
Or
somebody who
maybe the
don't.
state can decide what's your priority.
But whichever
Or
way.
maybe we
So,
can allow the state to decide what's your priority.
no, but I don't think you need to, because I think so. Let me come to the second part of the question, which is what the fact is not about realizing which is more essential than the other. It's about spreading the demand a little. You see, at the end of the day, you don't want all, because the problem with supply chain is maybe the demand is concentrated
Right.
in one area and there's supply excess somewhere
But
else, but demand more
have
here.
we mapped the demand? Do you think we've been able to map the demand yet
I,
with
we,
quantifiable figures?
no, I don't think so. And I'm quite frankly, I don't think it's going to be easy, because you see, there's a very, very different,
Absolutely. Yeah.
because no, I'll tell you why. Because there is an element of what I'm going to very blatantly call greed and hoarding. That's not
Right.
demand.
Right.
And you still have people doing
Right.
that. Now, where do you
Yeah.
then draw the line? I mean, I may want to go, the toilet paper situation that happened in the US, and we know that wasn't demand. That was just greed, and that was just hoarding. And I know
Yeah.
there are
People are
people
running
who
out of
do
toilet paper.
exactly. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
you can't really do that then. It'll become difficult. But what you can do is if the e-commerce players and their delivery networks can work closely with also kirana shops across, very much like the grocers model or very much like what a Dunzo does, that you go to areas where it's available, pick it up, and then go deliver. So that
And I think the companies would have some data and some understanding of
exactly,
what that is.
absolutely,
I think the
absolutely.
companies would have better data than the government in this case. What do you think?
Absolutely. I agree. And I think this is a time also for e-commerce companies and your traditional retailers who've been at loggerheads for a very long time to find ways to actually work
Yes,
together, even if not
yes,
for eternity, as it were, but at least during this moment of crisis, if they can come together to see whether the local kirana shops can maybe use the delivery networks of your Amazons and your Swiggies and your Zomatos and your Flipkarts in order to be able to go and deliver at home. Maybe they can. And these are maybe the kind of innovations that we can look at this point, which could come up. And this doesn't meet the central government or the state government. This is just what each company does, and it's the kind of
right,
initiative that they need to take on their own. And I hope that they
right.
find some way of doing that.
Great. So, Nirupama, I also, moving on, I want to talk about the directive issued yesterday by
Mm,
the Ministry of Home Affairs. I think that sort of really cleared a lot of confusion to the people of India, and that was a great move, I think, yesterday by the Home
correct.
Ministry, where they
Mm,
issued the standard operating procedure for maintaining supply of essential goods. And a lot of important and critical asked the facilities to make sure that they are making sure that everything is hygienic, everything is sanitized, health checkups are done. The retail end of the supply chain shall operate properly, and in cases of unorganized sector, persons engaged in supply of essential goods may be allowed based on approval.
mm.
So, a lot of great ideas. Now, all these great ideas require some sort of push in terms of putting things on paper. What do you think the state governments now need to do? Because this directive came yesterday evening, and we are now 24 hours within this. And this is a very important directive in terms of really operationalizing. I think the ministry and the government is now putting its foot down and saying operationalize, operationalize, operationalize. So, what do you think now needs to be done in terms of getting it out?
Look, I think the state governments have to be very, very pragmatic in terms of assessing their own capabilities of
Right.
being able to issue passes in a timely manner.
Yeah.
I mean, this is for the next 21 days. If you're going to take 1 week to issue passes, then the entire purpose is defeated. So they need
The
to take a
passes should
very,
have been,
very
ideally the passes should have been issued before the announcement of lockdown. What do you think?
agreed. And if not, if they're not, then they should just come up with their own, notifications saying that so and so companies or delivery boys delivering essentials and this are the only ones who are going to be allowed, and they can just show their ID card and kind of get on with it. And that applies to everybody who that notification actually specifies as people involved in the delivery of essential commodities across the value chain. If they're still
Right.
going to be hell bent on issuing passes, I really don't think this entire thing is feasible.
So
I
you think
don't.
ID cards are enough at this stage? We don't need to issue another document to prove their legitimacy of being
I'm
here.
I'm going to say yes, because let's, in
Right.
perspective, look, this is for 21 days. It's not like a blanket rule that you're giving. So maybe we need to also be a little proactive and think of holding on KYC documents and all of that.
Right.
And
Right.
we need to assume the best of each other as human beings at this time, and know that
Agree.
nobody is going to really go out of their way and purposely do harm. So that benefit of doubt has to be kind of given to every individual, and know that they're out on the road risking their lives and being
Absolutely.
infected
Yeah.
only because they are interested in doing what they want. I mean, in doing what they've been asked to, which is deliver the essential services. And also, let's remember that by allowing these sections of the population to work,
Right.
they have a livelihood that continues for themselves. Because look, you and I maybe can afford to sit at home, we get our salaries, we don't, I mean, that's a different issue, but we don't fall in that category of where we're denied our livelihood, or where the pressure of our livelihood being taken away from us will be felt immediately. But we know that there are huge sections of people. So if you are able to help them continue their essential services livelihood, and there's a population that will consume them, because you have people who are actually providing services. then I think the burden on the government also to ensure that these people get money and all of that will reduce. So let them at least try and facilitate these services so that this section of population can take care of themselves even during this moment of crisis, and they get the money and they have access to resources and they have access to services. So I think that if they maybe thought of it that way, maybe it would make a difference. And again, we're only talking essential services here. And I think that's what they need to look at.
Right. 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 And Nirupama, my last question is around, the people at the lowest end of the value chain and the migrant workers at their existing places and go to their houses and sort of, take care of them. It's just looking really daunting now to see the people across the country walking to different spaces. It's just a very damning picture.
It is, and quite frankly, I think there's no excuse for the government of not thinking about that. I think that this is something that they should have thought of, and they should have made provisions for this. If you are running planes to get people from outside of the country, they should have, at least now that they know what's happening, at least issue one or two buses to transport. Because see, you know that they're traveling in a certain bunch and going towards a certain route. So it's quite easy at this point to screen these people to make sure they're okay, to get them all onto a bus which has some essential services and take them where it needs to be, wherever it is that they need to go, even if they're going home. And I think that's really important. And or at least set up ready-made shelters of sorts on the way where there is a food of, where there is food packets available for them for the period of next 21 days, which also works. But you need to do all of this very fast. And the fastest that they can do, I believe, is to just provide them a state bus or any kind of transportation, which will carry them wherever it is that they want to go. And I think that's the easiest thing. And I'm quite frankly, I'm wondering why nobody has thought of doing that so far, because I don't believe that can be a very, very difficult task to implement.
Right. Right, right, right. I hope the government listens and sort of works out some mechanisms and measures to make sure that these people have access to some sort of transport. Otherwise, going back to the villages, days walking really is a very daunting picture ahead of us. But thank you so much, Nirupama, for talking to me today and as part
Thanks,
of the video
Kazim.
series. Thank you so much for having this conversation and. We will be reaching out to many more such experts as part of the video series, and we will be trying to disseminate and raise awareness and talk about these issues and how people can come together and help each other in these times of crisis and uncertainty. But thank you so much, Nirupama, for taking time out, and let's look forward to many more such conversations in the future. And we will be soon in touch with you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks. Bye.